Hi everyone, this is Fabio Pitino. I'm a principal engineer at GitLab. I'm going to demonstrate how to take CI/CD templates that you might have, or in this case, we're going to take a GitLab CI/CD template and we convert them into components. So I'm going to follow the documentation we have for CI/CD components, and specifically the convert CI/CD template into a component. So my intention is to take, I looked at the GitLab code base. We have a few templates that are related to AWS, EC2 for deploying, and also another deployment, ECS. So I figured I could create a project containing multiple components related to AWS. So on GitLab components. In this project, I've created like this AWS project. And currently what I've done, this is like a basic README for now, needs to be done properly. And I created the templates folder. And what I did, I actually copy pasted the content of these templates into this. I call them EC2 deploy, ECS deploy, but we're going to do some refactoring. So for example, if we look at, for example, EC2, this has been copied as is into EC2 deploy. Let's open this on WebID and apply some refactoring. I want to work on this. So first of all, we have some stages. There's a few things it would be good to change to make this template and now component more usable. An idea I have is since we have two jobs here, so this template adds a review EC2 and a production EC2. Basically, it's the same job deployment. One deploys to a review environment, another one deploys to a production environment. Also, the stage is different. So, and there's also some variables to say review disabled. So, which means we might sometimes deploy to a review environment conditionally. Sometimes we want, sometimes we don't. So, I have this idea where we could actually make this template more like a review and production. So, if you want to do both, but you can also have a production only or review only component, or you can include them both. So this way you can also even just select one of them if you want. So one idea here will be to rename this to EC2 review and deploy, for example. We'll see, this might not be the final decision, but let's look into that for now. I'm going to create another one called EC2 review. Yeah. I'm going to copy for now this content and remove the stuff we don't need. So let's take this out for now, this production part. So we only want to be able to include this. So at this point, we can review this production stage, and we can actually turn this stage into an input because it's going to be much better than forcing whoever is including this template to define the stage. So I'm going to create the spec header inputs called stage, since this is just one job. Yeah, let's just make it mandatory. We don't need to have this review is not like a standard GitLab stage, so let's not have that as a default. Okay, this is good for now, and we change this to use inputs. Inputs stage, and we can actually copy this for now. And rather than using extend, so we can have script, stage, image. We'll see what else we can do here. So this can go away. We also have, so this CI template registry host, um, since this is a variable, maybe on a different environment, on self-managed, or you may want to have your own copy of this image. Maybe you want to customize to use a slightly different image. So I think maybe good to have that as an input, where we called registry host, and we can make it. Oh, yes, we can make this default. This one. So we can then reuse it as is, and here we do inputs registry host. Okay, so we replace this. We have a script, and we now have an environment. Ref name. That's fine. We could make this also an input where we call environment name. Default could be this. Inputs and just environment. It should be sufficient. And now we have a few things. So if this is very specific to auto DevOps. So okay, I'm gonna think about this. We might not need this because then we are coupling this to knowledge of auto DevOps. And when review disabled. This is so I have different ideas. So instead of using always including this and then using the variable review disabled never, then I think we can conditionally include this on the first place. So then it's a if review disabled, basically don't include that. So I prefer not to do this. So I'm currently commenting this out. We could do the same for this to tackle this. CI Kubernetes active or config never. Okay. Okay, so this is Kubernetes related. We don't do this. Okay, I want to tackle this differently. Okay. Okay, we can leave this as a standard. So if these conditions are met, then yeah, since this is more related to the CI commit branch, we don't want to do this on a default branch. We want to do it on a tag or a branch. Okay. Okay, that sounds like a standard behavior. So one thing we can do then is if we open review and deploy, now instead of using this review, we can use include local EC2 review pass inputs. So what the inputs we need to pass, stage, registry, host is we have the default and we have the environment, so we don't need to pass this right now. So we need to pass the stage. Stage review, and we can remove this. Oh, yes, let's remove this. Now this is the same for production. Create a new. It's called review and deploy. Yeah, let's create a new file, EC2 deploy. We put it here, and we also have this. Right, so actually I'm going to just copy this in. The reason why we don't want to prefer not to use extend, when if possible, this is like a small duplication, I think it's fine. But if it was like a lot more complex, then maybe we could have used like a local include that defines this hidden job, and then we would extend it. But since this hidden job defined here is going to be merged wherever the this component is going to be used, we don't want to have unnecessarily any kind of a name clashing. So we just prefer just to live with the duplication for now. So let's do the same work we did with the EC2 review. So we define some even the same inputs. Since this is defined here, and we also change this to inputs registry host, environment name will be inputs environment, and in this case will be production. Stage will replace with the input, which in this case is input stage. Okay, so we have the image, we have the stage. Okay, now we need to do the same thing here. So for now, I'm gonna comment this out. I want to use this differently. This is the same. We can leave that the rest. Okay, so if we want to use this one and review and deploy, we can now remove this, and we include local EC2 review deploy inputs stage production. Cool, and we can remove this. Okay, so this should work with basic functionality. So you include EC2 review and deploy, and that works. There's a few things here that I still don't like. So we have stages hard-coded, so I'll prefer that we kind of pass inputs instead. So one thing we can do here is, since we have review and deploy, we can have spec inputs instead, and define review stage. So for backward compatibility, at least for consistency with existing usage, maybe we can keep review, even if it's not like a standard stage, and then we do production stage default. How do we call it? So we have this production stage. I will be wary of renaming this. Actually, we can rename. I think it's fine. So deploy. Oh no, this is production. Because it's the environment, production environment. So okay, review environment, production environment, still both deployments. So yeah, we call it differently then. I think when we can rename those to be production instead, because both are deployments. Deploy production, rename, deploy review. Yeah, Yes. So now our deploy, review and deploy. Now this should become review and production. So this one now. So this, okay. Now this should include EC2 deploy review, EC2 deploy production. Cool. And review stage, production stage, production default. Okay. Oh, actually, let's not put it at all. Default. Let's, for now, make sure they are always passed explicitly. And stage, now we actually inject this downstream. So inputs review stage, inputs production stage. Okay, so we are, so now we have, you can include this component, and that in turn will include deploy review and deploy production. Or you can selectively just include one of them if you want to. There's a few things we wanted to do. Okay, if review disabled, whenever. Okay, maybe you can do this. Instead of calling review and production, call this deploy. So more generic. And because the idea I have is that we can push this review disabled. Instead of being defined here with a variable, we can actually do EC2 deploy and if review disabled, then we can do this conditionally here. So include local, I can do rules if I can do inputs here. If include review, okay, include deploy review. And here we can do deploy review. We can do here like a Boolean input. So type Boolean default true. So we always include review. But then you can say, you can include this, you can use this component deploy and pass deploy review false if you are not interested in the review. Or you could directly use deploy. Actually, you know what? Like, if you want, you can just use the review stage. You can do this like sorry, you can directly include deploy production if you're not interested in deploy review. And if there is any need, we can do this. But basically, the idea will be like if deploy review, you will include this deploy review. So you always include one, but the control with the input, whether you want to do the deployment on review environment. But like I think for now it's not needed. Let's just remove this. Okay, so this basically always includes both, and then this can include one or the other one. So this means like a review disabled, actually, we can remove. Let me have a look in if we do use review disabled somewhere. What if our present job isn't created? Disable. Okay, so this will be deploy. Okay, so we still use that review disabled, and we define it for other DevOps is still used. So deploy latest. Okay. All right, let's do one thing. So for now, let's keep this, and we can look into in a later stage to refactor this out. And on the platform, yeah. So basically, the way I'm thinking is that if you want to use list in other DevOps, for example, or the DevOps template, which is something like this one. Since you define auto DevOps platform, I think here what we could do is if we want to, instead of including this EC2 all the time, we will do something like this. For example, include components, components, AWS, I think it's called AWS, and then we call it EC2 deploy. So because we want to include both of them, EC2 deploy, give them a version eventually. But then we could do this rules if we call it here, I have it here. We include it if the auto DevOps platform is EC2, right? So rather than always including it and then controlling it with a variable, we can actually conditionally include it, right? So we could do something like that. And this, I think, is the much better way because, like, you know, this is a EC2, so don't include it if you don't need that. So yeah, this is the reason why we can remove this and instead do it conditionally. But I want to leave it here so we know how to tackle in case in the usage, and I'll document this in the README. And the same will be done for Kubernetes active and kubectl. So basically, if you are in Kubernetes environment, don't include that. And we can use the same technique of we're using rules. So that's pretty much is what I wanted to demonstrate. And all this, then this is other parts that we're gonna be following with creating the GitLab CI YAML. Actually, we could probably do this quickly. Nothing here, but CI YAML. And here what we will do is include, so actually I will be doing test the component. I can kind of pretty much reproduce something similar to this. So I want to include the component. The component name is EC2 deploy. What inputs this requires? It requires a review stage and a production stage. So I'm gonna do review stage. Let's call it review production. Input stage review. So this is like a review stage. Review stage. Production stage. Production. And then we're going to have a release. We also have some test stage, since we want to do a few tests here that jobs are being added, for example. which are review EC2 and production EC2. Review EC2. Actually, EC2, there should be some jobs, and there has to be 2 jobs. So this is the test basically ensures that those jobs are included, and this can be extracted eventually into some kind of helper component, and also especially here in the release. So I want that when I tag and push a new tag, it will automatically be released. So there is some changes we need to do here to make sure that this can be deployed successfully. So I won't be doing this yet, since like it requires, sorry, this one, it requires me to set up the environment to properly, for this to properly work. But this is just to get the gist of how to refactor components. So basically then we will be able to include like this, or you will be able to include specific, something like component deploy production and EPA stage production directly. Yeah, and this is basically how it's going to work, and then we need to document that. So hope this was useful, and I can create more detailed if there is any need. But yeah, this for now should work as an introduction how to convert templates to components.